And you don't have much time to correct anything when you're jumping at that altitude. But the reason for that was you don't want to be up in the air any longer than you have to, because when they start firing at you, you want to be down on that ground and moving. So then came graduation day. We assembled on the parade ground. It was October the 6th, 1944. We received our certificate of completion. We received our silver wings. And then later on that day, we received our jumpsuit, our coveted paratroop boots, which set us aside from any other branch of service. And then that day we also received a 2-week furlough. This is standard practice when you are getting ready to go overseas. We were heading for overseas soon. I received a furlough, got a train ticket to Oregon. That's where I came from. The train went to Atlanta, Georgia, and from Atlanta up to Chicago. Well, when it came to Evansville, I thought, well, I'll just get off this train and stop and see 2 sisters and 2 brothers there. And I hadn't seen them for a while. So the second night, my oldest sister arranged a date with a beautiful young girl by the name of Dorothy. Well, you know, things went so well that I didn't get to Oregon. So after those 2 weeks, we dated almost every night, and we did quite well, I think. So then it was time to go back to Fort Benning, and we went back there, and all of the class was sent to Fort Meade, Maryland, to go overseas to Europe. We were at Fort Meade for 3 days, and we were called out and they told us, get all of your bags, well, there's only one bag, so put all your small bags in your large bag, and make sure that you have everything, because today you're going to be going to Europe. We got out onto the field there in a little shed in one corner, and a corporal came out and he started calling names. And he said, when your name is called, go board the buses that were waiting there and they will take you to the ship. They called alphabetically up to the L's. And an officer came out and they started going through their sheets, and they had clipboards. Pretty soon they went back inside. We were just standing there, the rest of them all leaving. And he came back out and said, all you men that don't have your name called, go back to your barracks. Ooh. All of these men that left that day were in the deadliest battle of World War II, the Battle of the Bulge. And a lot of those people, those fellows never came home. So I was lucky. They sent the rest of us to North Carolina, to Camp McCall, where we were assigned to the 541st Paratroop Regiment. It was a small regiment at first, and then as more paratroopers graduated from Fort Benning, it grew and grew. And it eventually grew to 3,000 men. While we were there, we would go out on Monday morning and stay all week up until Friday, and we'd sleep on the ground. We'd have one blanket and a backpack. And of course, we always carried a weapon, which we didn't need at that time. But so it kept getting colder and colder, and it started freezing. And it was nights were miserable. One little old blanket, and we left our clothes on. And Friday when we went into those barracks, it was just pure heaven. So while I was there, I had 10 more training jumps, and then we had one night jump. And that was a bad jump. It just jet black out there, couldn't see a thing. And when we went out the door, couldn't see anything. I knew what to expect, but I didn't know when I was going to hit the ground. We finally, all of us got down to the ground, and we started trying to find our organizations. We couldn't find anything. We didn't have a flashlight. You didn't dare have a flashlight because we were simulating battle duty. And you couldn't talk up except to whisper, and you'd get up to one guy said, "Hey Joe, where's company A?" He said, "Hell, I don't know, I can't even find my company." We were just totally disorganized. Well, and at the time I thought, well, what would you do if you were in battle? So the paratroopers that jumped the night before the big invasion in Europe had a little gadget with them called the cricket. Let's see if I can find it. Well, where's it at? Here it is. Okay, what they did, they gave every one of those paratroopers a cricket before they jumped that night. So if they came upon someone weren't sure who they were, they tried that little cricket, and if they got a response, they knew that it was their own kind. If they didn't get a response, they were ready to fire, because they could have been the Germans. We don't know how successful this was, but if it saved one life, it was well worth it. This beautiful girl came to North Carolina, and she found employment in a mortician's office close to the base. Of course, I had some persuasion. I was, you had to talk pretty strong then. Anyhow, after a period of time, first of all, when she worked for the mortician, she was only paid $16 a week, so that wasn't that great of money. So after a period of time, we were married. We were married in the post chapel at Camp McCall, and the wedding cost $2. Well. That was probably the best $2 I ever spent. So, Dorothy, would you raise your hand so they can... Dorothy came back to Evansville, and we had our time together, and then it was back to North Carolina. The entire 541st was sent to Camp Stoneman, California on troop trains. When we arrived at Camp Stoneman, it was a few miles from the Bay Area. We were there about 2 days, and then it was time to go aboard the ships. They sent buses to pick us up. And when they did, every one of us received our military record when we got aboard the bus. And I thought, well, that's strange. I've never seen this before. Never had this happen. So when we were heading towards the ship, I thought, well, I'm just going to take a little peek in that thing and see what it says. So I opened it up, and it wasn't sealed. So after I looked inside, I was extremely pleased. We boarded the ship, And as we went aboard, when we handed our military record, it must have been I don't know what the reason for it. Maybe it was standard procedure with the Navy or something, I don't know. But we went aboard, and they gave us a card for our aisle and seat. And all of the aisles below deck were marked alphabetically, and of course, not the seat, but the beds were numbered. The beds were pipe beds, and they had an anchor, steel anchor that went from the main deck up to the top deck, and the top bunk was 16 feet in the air. And I was up about halfway, so we had to climb the beds to get to the bed, grab a hold of the rails to climb up to get to our beds. It was a hectic getting on that ship, and our rifles were stowed underneath the lower bed. All of our duffel bags were hung on these beds up in the air, and we were all in there. It just looked like a giant salami factory. All these things hanging down. It was difficult to get through there too. So we set sail from the bay about 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And as we got closer to the San Francisco Bay Bridge, word was out, we're getting close, and everyone came aboard up on the top deck. And we noticed cars were stopping. It must have been going home or something. And as we got close to the bridge, women started throwing their hats out towards us, and a mighty roar would go up every time a hat would be thrown. But if a handkerchief was thrown, it got very little response, and I don't understand that. So it was a beautiful sight. I'd never seen the Bay Bridge before, or the Golden Gate Bridge, I mean. So out to sea we went. This second day we were at sea, we started seeing flying fish. And I'd never seen flying fish before. I didn't know anything like that existed. And there would be a huge wave come up alongside of the ship, and they'd pop out of the top of that wave, and they spread their wings, and they would sail for about 100 feet till they hit another wave. And this went on all day long, and they always sailed the same way the ship was going. And I never couldn't understand that. So that was interesting. And then after about a day and a half, we got out of the area where the fish were flying, and it was kind of dull and boring. Arrived at Pearl Harbor the 6th day, pulled into Pearl Harbor, and they wouldn't let us off board, to go aboard shore, because they knew that so many of the men would get drunk and they would never get back. So there was a lot of dissension going on that night. The following morning we left Pearl Harbor, and we were heading for we went on the southwesterly angle heading towards the equator. And we never were told where we were going, but we knew we were going to the Philippines, because that's where the war was about ended there. After the 14th day, we came upon a little island called Eniwetok, and it was in the Marshall Group. Oh, it was getting hot down there then. We were getting close to equator. And so we unloaded some supplies and left there about 4 o'clock in the afternoon and headed out again. Next morning when I went topside, ships all around us. It was amazing. Where did all those ships come from? We were in a convoy. And off on each side was a gunship. And oh my, we're in hazardous waters now. Later that morning, they issued a life jacket for every one of us. We didn't have to put it on, but we carried it with us. And then at night, no smoking was allowed on the deck after dark. All of the portholes, the stairwells, everything was closed with black canvas. And was that ship hot? Oh my. It was at least 100 degrees down there. And it was that hotter up above on the top deck too. We only had two places to go. Down in the bunk bed area where we slept, or the top deck, and that was it. No seats. We had to stand or sit. And so we were perspiring so much that our clothes started souring. And we only had one change of clothes. No showers, no laundry facilities, and we had to wear those two sets of clothes all that way. They got so wet with perspiration, they started souring, and we finally decided, well, we're going to take our laundry bags and tie them onto a jump rope and anchor them over or tie them off the side of the ship and let them get in that water. We had no soap or anything. So every paratrooper has a jump rope which is 30 feet long. That's standard procedure. So if you land in a tree, when you tie it to your harness, unhook your harness and slide down that rope, and that's a way of getting out of the tree. So we started doing that, and you could look along the side of the boat, and there'd be 50 or 60 bags bouncing along in that water, and it was a sight. And I'm sure that if a Japanese submarine periscope came up and saw that, he would probably thought, this is a new weapon they're bringing out. This went on for another 14 days, and it was murder. So one night, I thought, well, you couldn't sleep, and everybody was jawing back and forth. 3,000 men down there. We're all 19 years old. You know about what that was like. So, well, I'm going to go up on top deck and try to get in some of that breeze. The ship was traveled about 10 miles an hour or so, and had my long shorts on. I tried lying down on that deck up there. Ooh, that deck was hot. That lasted about 30 seconds. Back down I was. So after we got into the convoy, all the ships started this zigzag. And that's to help elude a torpedo if one is fired, and that really slowed us up. We thought we would get to the Philippines at least 3 or 4 days earlier, but on the 29th day, I saw a coconut floating in the ocean, and I thought, well, we must be getting close to something, but no land in sight that day. The next morning, when I went topside, we were sailing right by Corregidor, going into the entrance to Manila Bay.